Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about networking, especially if you're looking for a teaching professor position or a lecturer. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Horace, and since 2016 I've been a professor, and for a majority of that time I've actually sat on university hiring committees. And so I'm the person that screens resumes, interviews, and hopefully gives job offers. And so one of the kind of secrets that I want to tell you from the inside is a lot of the folks that get hired as teaching professors, especially for part-time teaching positions, most of those are never posted on the job portal, right? A lot of folks don't realize this, but university and colleges have a genuine need for people like practitioners, industry professionals to come in and teach. And so one of the primary ways folks like that get those roles is through networking and basically knowing the faculty, knowing the people on the teaching team. And so we're going to talk about networking, and most of the time that's how folks get hired. So by the end of today's video, we're going to talk a bit about who exactly you should contact at the institution, especially if you're trying to get hired as a teaching professor, whether it's part-time or full-time. When in the year is a good time to reach out, and exactly what you should say, right? So if you're interested in a teaching position, what are the magic phrases that you can say to essentially get yourself hired? And so we're going to break down three things in particular, right? We're going to talk a little bit about why folks you need to be hired. And second, we're going to talk about what are the things that you can actually pitch? What are the things you can say to actually, what is the value that you can offer to get yourself hired instead of just simply asking for a teaching job? And third, what is the right way to package that? How do you say that exactly? And I'll be sharing some of my favorite things that I like to hear from folks trying to basically network their way into a teaching position. So starting with something really important, when it comes to teaching professor positions, oftentimes the person who actually makes the decision is not the dean, right? So when I was looking for my first faculty position, one of the mistakes that I made is I thought people like the president or the dean or the provost at a university is the person that would make this decision. I should reach out to them. I have since learned, after sitting on the inside, that it's not folks like that. In fact, the key people that make these decisions are department chairs, program directors, and individual faculty members that run the courses, right? So these are the crucial, who should you actually reach out to when it comes to faculty hiring is for teaching positions. When it comes to research positions or more full-time tenured faculty roles, it's a little different. Definitely is through the application portal. But for these teaching positions, especially part-time ones, those are the three key people you want to reach out to, right? So a lot of the time, the program director and the department chair, they're the ones that decide the teaching schedule, the teaching allocation, and they are the ones that ultimately approve adjunct or sessional or part-time, as they're also called, hiring needs, right? Specific faculty members who run the course are also really important people, right? They're the people in charge of an individual course. They're the ones that really know the needs of the course, right? So if it's a specific intro to marketing course, corporate finance 2, for example, they have a lot of influence over who really gets selected, right? So those are also, really valuable folks to reach out to, and they're the ones that have the direct need. They're the ones that need people to maybe cover a section that they can't cover. So all those people work, and those are the ideal folks that you should be looking at networking with. So most of the time in most departments, when a section needs to be filled, right, a single section of a course needs to be filled, very rarely is that job posting made and we're waiting around for a couple months to see who applies and then reviewing applications. It's a really lengthy process that needs to address a hiring need that happens immediately, right? So leaves, somebody gets ill, somebody can't take a section anymore because their work schedule. Life happens, and sometimes you get a call just days before the semester begins, and so that's not enough time to post a job and do the entire process. And so a lot of the time, we'll just look through our phones, look through who we know, and reach out to folks or wait until somebody reaches out to us. In fact, I got hired myself just 2 weeks. My very first semester for my first part-time teaching role, I was hired just 2 weeks before the semester started, right? And so I've seen the adjuncts hired on a much shorter timeline as well, right? And so what does that mean for you? So if you're applying on online job portals, you're sending your resume to the dean or something like that in the hopes of shooting your shot, it's absolutely the wrong move. You want to reach out to those target people that we mentioned And so the thing is, there's like a genuine need. University, business schools need accountants who've done the work, need lawyers who've actually practiced. Nursing schools need clinicians who've done the work, right? And so it's a lot less competitive than you think it is, just because the need is so strong, right? As a university, we really, or even colleges, we want people who have the experience to come in and share that with our students. And so there's a real systemic need for folks with this kind of experience. And so what are the actual things that you can say, or what are the actual things that you can pitch, right? Because if you just send an email saying, hey, I want to be a professor, that's usually not going to work. We don't really know you like that. We need something a little more to understand who you are, what you do, and really it's relationships that open the door. And so here's 3 example things that I usually like to see pitched, or if there's somebody that I don't really know, but they have some experience and they really want to bring that to the classroom. Here are 3 things that I've seen work. So number 1 is a guest lecture. So as a faculty member, one of the most important things that I can do is let my students know what is the world after class going to look like. And so pitching a guest lecture, especially if you have that kind of industry or corporate experience, is really valuable, right? And so there's no ask, there's no hidden agenda. You're just really providing value to offer, hey, I'll come in and do a guest lecture and share my experience about what the practice is. And so this, well, 1, gets you some teaching experience, and 2, if you're looking to teach a course similar to mine, I get to see exactly what you've done or exactly how you teach, and now I have you in my back pocket, so that if I ever have that kind of teaching need, I might reach out. So another thing that you can try to pitch is project mentoring. So especially in business schools, like professional school programs that have capstone projects, it's really valuable to have project mentors with that kind of experience. So if somebody reached out to me and said, hey, my personal teaching is data analytics and AI. So if somebody's with that kind of experience came to me and said, hey, I would love to help out on a group project. I'd love to be the project mentor, provide my real industry experience to these students. That would be so valuable to me in my class. And again, if I see that and we develop a relationship through that, I'm again going to keep you in mind whenever there is a teaching need. The third thing that I really need, to be honest, desperately, is competition judging, right? Case competitions, hackathons, design competitions. We need industry professionals with that kind of experience who can come in and help with those processes, with those competitions, especially as a judge, as a mentor. It's a great opportunity to meet faculty, to meet students, to build that kind of credibility. And now you have like legitimate reason, a legitimate thing to say with demonstrated interest. You're not just saying, hey, I'm interested in a teaching position. You're saying, hey, I've done this before. I've developed the interest. I've gotten to know your students. I would love to take that up a notch, right? And so in terms of how you actually use these, right? So these are 3 things that you can offer to a faculty member, to a department. So another thing that you can do when you're reaching out, you can, option 1 is to pitch these things. Option 2 is just to ask for advice, right? So when you don't ask for, if you don't have something to pitch like that, one thing that you can do is simply ask for advice. Hey, I am a professional, or like, this is my current position, and I would love to bring that to the classroom, right? And how can I do that? Do you have any advice for me? What was your own how did you get your own start when it comes to teaching faculty positions? That's something you can also do, right? If you feel like a little shy, a little introverted about pitching those specific things, you can simply try asking for advice. So one of the things I don't recommend though is directly asking for a teaching job, because like I said, relationships open doors, and if I don't know you and I get a single message saying, hey, this is who I am, I'm interested in teaching, can I teach your course, or do you have a teaching job for me? That's a little too direct, and that never really works, because before a first date you even asked me to marry you. It's a little too strong, and the relationship hasn't really developed yet. So try to go for lighter touch approaches, and usually that yields more promising results, right? And so one of the things that people often ask me is, when should I be doing this? Is there a specific time of the year? And honestly, there is no bad time to start this kind of process. Relationship building is a long game, and so the sooner you start, the better. Just know that it's important to be realistic about what kind of response time you might get, just because there's exam time, there's assignment time. There are busier seasons in each semester, so you may not always get a response right away. You may not get a response at all, and it's totally okay to follow up a couple weeks. So don't be afraid to follow up, but just understand that there's times when we're not going to reply as quickly, or maybe even at all, right? We get tons of emails from students, so sometimes things just get lost in the inbox a little bit. And so the thing that is kind of difficult for a lot of folks is that the hiring process is not particularly hard. It's even not that competitive. It's really hard to find good candidates with the right experience who have the energy, enthusiasm, and passion for teaching. And so we have, as an institution, we have like a pretty strong need for good teaching professors, for people who can bring that kind of experience, except it's just opaque from the outside. And that's why I make these videos, right? To help folks that are interested in teaching at the post-secondary level. And so the last thing that I promised was the secret phrase that I love to see. And it's basically, I just want to know that you have the capability of bridging theory and practice, right? As an instructor, I do my best to be as practical as possible, to not only explain theory, but practice as well. And so I bring a lot of my own corporate background into my classroom. And when I am looking for, or when I'm sitting there and somebody reaches out and says that they have the ability to help me bridge theory and practice, really speaking my language, that's the kind of thing I love to see. And so if you're looking for secret phrases to include in some of your outreach messages, let us know that you really want to just bridge theory and practice. And that's the ultimate goal here. And so that one phrase is really helpful. So while that is a helpful phrase, one of the things that I want to be really honest with you is that one phrase, just the networking alone, isn't enough. You probably need a real academic CV rather than your typical resume. You need a good teaching philosophy. You need to have some practice creating a syllabus. And so that's the kind of stuff that, as a hiring committee member, those are the things I like evaluate when I'm hiring. And so that's exactly the kind of stuff I do with my clients in my Industry to Academia Accelerator program. So if you're interested in teaching faculty positions and you want my help, just click the link in the description below. And I'd love to talk a little bit about where you are right now, what your ultimate goals are, and to see if we can work together to help you get a teaching faculty role. And so the teaching role that you want is way closer than you think. I just recommend not necessarily only applying when you see it online. Start networking, because those kind of back channels are really where most of the teaching professor hiring happens. So that's all for today, and I'll see you all in the next one.